Next up on our panel, we have Kevin Jagger. Originally from Calgary, Kevin grew up in Vancouver and attended Vancouver College, where he lettered in 4 varsity sports: football, basketball, rowing, and track and field. He attended McGill University, where he played football for the Redmen. After graduating with a finance degree, he spent 3 years with Citigroup as an investment banker. Watching the 2010 Olympics, he was inspired to get out from behind the cubicle and try to compete again. So, he quit his job and is now training full-time to become a member of Canada's national long-track speed skating team, despite having never tried the sport. Kevin maintains a blog, longtracklongshot.com, which chronicles his journey. Kevin.
Thank you very much. This kind of hurts a little bit of my intro, just having that bio, but for the sake of repeating myself. But I am Kevin Jagger, and I'm actually, as you mentioned, a recent convert to the sport of long track speed skating. And to kind of back up, I did play football at McGill. After going to Toronto and kind of working on Bay Street for a couple of years as an investment banker, I left and became a principal at a U.S. media firm, and it was in that role that I was in Vancouver watching the games. And this is kind of the extent of my where's the button here? This is the extent of my athletic involvement during the games. Beer in hand, watching the game, just like anybody else. And it was really over the course of those 2 weeks. I have family and my girlfriend that were closely involved with VANOC. So with the build-up to the games and the basically VANOC as well as the city and the province just steadfast on putting together the greatest games. And on the podium coming out and doing what I thought was quite un-Canadian, saying, we're going to be the best. Just no excuses, we are going to be the best. And seeing the amount of work that goes in, and it was watching the games, and people ask me if there's a specific moment. There really wasn't. It was, if I needed to pick one thing, it was Crosby's kind of golden goal. But it wasn't that moment. It was when that happened, being like, I cannot believe we have the most gold medals to just set a new record. The games are unbelievable. We're going to closing ceremonies. With money and resources and just a commitment to getting things done, everything was pulled off. And so I think at the time I was 25, 230 pounds, hadn't played any serious sports in 6 years, and I just really was not ready to say I'll never be a part of something like that ever. So I thought, there's got to be something I can do. I got to get back into sports. I don't know what to do, but I wish it was a little more glorious than this, but I went to Wikipedia and looked up the Winter Olympic sports. And I looked at some sports that I just wanted to see, how people obviously, these aren't traditional sports. Everyone has a unique way of getting into them. Maybe this was going to be my unique way of getting into sports. So I had a simple set of criteria. No team sports. It was too late. It just wasn't going to happen. I didn't have the ability to kind of impress coaches or meet people. I needed something that I could just train, and it was objective. So that kicked out anything that was judged. I didn't think I'd have the time to get the subtle nuances of the sport. As well, anything that's judged I think would take just too long, and I don't think they would really like someone coming in without the kind of pedigree. And so after that, left a ton of skiing sports. And if you look at the money involved in moving up to Whistler and training full-time, the equipment and the coaching, that just wasn't going to happen. So it left all the sledding sports and speed skating. I'd never touched a luge, skeleton, or bobsled. And so I just had no frame of reference for it. So speed skating it was. The only understanding was that, I played hockey as a kid. So this is what I looked like the last time I was on skates. And so I thought, I'm a strong guy, did well in football, did well in basketball. I thought maybe some of those skills would transfer if I could just learn skating. I love watching skating. That's how I picked that sport. So having never tried the sport, I called anybody and everybody, just trying to get more information. And very luckily settled on, I found a former Olympian who had retired in Vancouver and basically didn't know what to do after the games. And he was going back to school, and convinced him to coach me. His one set of criteria was I need to be serious, and I said I was. And to kind of, prove it, we started training twice a day, 6 days a week. So I quit my job the morning after I met him. And I started full-time. So I hired a full-time coach, undertook completely overhauled training regimen program. So over the course of the summer, I lost 40 pounds and made a couple trips out to Calgary to get on the oval ice because the oval here had been closed by then, so I still at this point hadn't put on skates. So I went out to Calgary, Tried a bunch of camps. I had to go to beginner camps to be qualified for other camps. So I basically did anything I could, drove out a couple of times, flew out a couple of times, and ended up qualifying for Canada's Oval program. So I now live in Calgary and train as a long track speed skater full time. It's basically, my goal there is to compete for Canada on the international stage. It's been an amazing 12 months, to say the least, and I can say with 100% certainty I would not still be able to chase my dream were it not for maintaining a blog and engaging in social media. My blog is aptly named Long Track Long Shot. It's opened more doors than I can count. What originally started as a coaching tool for my coach and I to go back and forth. We take photos and video and kind of look at technique and speed work, and that was our way to communicate, just because it was simply, we couldn't email videos back and forth to each other, so we had a place to upload it. I started sharing the site, and I literally sent out a big email to my old colleagues, doing that classic update email when you leave work. So I sent that one out and said, this is what I'm doing. Basically, it'd be great if you could follow it. And so from there is where the story and kind of involving others really kind of grew. So I can go on for hours about the merits of blogging and being active on social media, but for this audience, I'll stick to just one topic, and it's amateur athlete sponsorship. I do not compete in front of 10,000 people. In fact, I may go my entire career without competing in front of that many cumulatively. So, however, through my social media and my blog, along with corresponding PR efforts, I've generated brand impressions for my sponsors that are now into the millions. My old boss always told me to never come to the bargaining table empty-handed. As an overweight, old, wannabe athlete with no experience in the sport, I would say that at the time that we started this, I was empty-handed. So how could I receive funds with no success to date, no medals, no podium finishes, nothing? So what did I have? I had a story. So I had a story and I was willing to share it. It took a while to overcome the self-consciousness of talking about myself, especially when I have to sit down and write a blog post sometimes about losing to a 13-year-old girl. From there, once I kind of got rolling and things started progressing, and each time you have an accomplishment, you really are happy that you wrote that blog post 3 weeks ago about a dark day, what we call them, kind of a bad day. And so it gives you self-confidence going forward. Be like, it's no problem. I can write about this blog post. I can write about my day and not having my great race result, because it's just going to make that next blog post that much better. So you really start to kind of open up. And it was kind of from there that I relied on family and friends to help share the blog and expand my reach, and thus improve my marketability to potential sponsors. People continue to come up to me and say, they loved it. They loved what I was doing. They thought it was great. How can they help? And they, I didn't know really what they were looking for, but I never gave them the answer of, saying, I could use $100, or I could use, there was no kind of, I didn't talk to them in financial terms. I thought that would be kind of a one-off and really not the appropriate thing to do. So I asked for what I thought was a much smaller commitment, but something that was much more sustainable and would put me on the path to actually being able to consistently and for a prolonged journey kind of fund a multi-year effort. So my answer was just to keep following. Like my page on Facebook, retweet if you found something great, retweet it. Subscribe to the blog, come out to Hill Sprints Club, like a photo, share a YouTube link. These are all things that cost them nothing, and in fact, they're happy to do it. So people talk about the ROI of social media, and sites are getting more sophisticated with Hootsuite Analytics and Sprout Social and Clout and things like that. And all these little things these people are doing are helping me, and they're helping me fund my journey. By generating these impressions and improving my Google ranking and things like that, they're able to give me something to go back to the sponsors, and I now have that bargaining chip. So all I've done is reach out to these people, and Jen touched on earlier about relationships. There's just kind of, instead of asking everybody for $25, $30 here, instead just share my story and leverage them kind of as the asset, and then in turn go and speak to my sponsors, and that's what I'm offering them. That's the offer. I can't just say, yeah, I'll throw your logo on my jersey. That won't work for me, and it won't work for a lot of amateur athletes. So I guess the kind of the key thing here is if you go on any blog or anything that tells you what makes a great blog, and they always say content. And for an athlete, you really do have a distinct leg up. For one, you have exclusive content. No one else can tell your story. The second thing is it's easy. You don't really need to hunt for your content. It's just what you do today. Make sure you take a couple photos, have some video, And the kind of the main thing is you'll be amazed at the doors that open up. You may not be comfortable as an athlete, A, doing a blog, but then B, kind of going out and soliciting sponsorship. By having your blog, you're then arming all of your strongest supporters to do that on your behalf. And I can't tell you I can't tell you how my sponsors have come in. They've all come from someone forwarding a specific blog post to someone else saying, you may find this interesting, and by the way, you should reach out and get in touch with Kevin. 3 or 4 emails later, a coffee later, it's a new sponsor. So thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it. And